call the meeting. I will, it being 3:30, I'll call the meeting to order. Could you please call the roll, Doctor?
Camel,
Here.
Alder DePula,
Here.
Ms. Hamilton Nisbet,
Here.
Mr. Graff,
Here.
Mr. Brinkman,
Here.
Ms. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Proctor.
Here.
And Mr. Chapman and Ms. Badini are both excused.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone here that is not on the ad hoc committee that is here to make an decision? One, okay, we'll close the appearance section, and we'll go from there to introductions. And before I ask for those introductions, I just want to extend my gratitude on behalf of the entire city of Monona for you guys diving in and agreeing to serve on this comprehensive planning committee. It means a lot to us as a community, and I think it's going to be a fantastic project. And so with that, I'll just start. For those of you that I think you all know me quite well, but obviously Mayor Nancy Moore, and prior to being mayor, which started on April 15th, 25, I was on the planning commission for 7, I think, out of the 8 years I was on the council, and 6 of those years I was chair of the planning commission. So and I've been a strategic planner and thinker and consultant my whole professional career. So this is something that I love to dive into as well, and I look forward to working. So thank you.
Tanya Hamilton Nisbet. I moved to Monona about 10 years ago. I have experience in the food marketing and advertising industry in the Twin Cities, and when we moved back to Madison, I got involved in civic activities. I was a co-president of Madison is neighborhoods, I was co-president of one of the neighborhoods, the East Buckeye neighborhood where Abundant Life is. Everyone heard of Abundant Life? Unfortunately, but and from there I was on a planning consortium to develop an urban plan for Stoughton Road called the Stoughton Road Revitalization Project. We developed an urban plan from Highway 30 to the Beltline for Stoughton Road. We raised funds. We hired an urban planner out of Minneapolis, had public meetings and focus groups with business groups, probably similar to the kinds of exercises we'll be going through, which are really great, actually. And we got that adopted into Madison's comp plan after we presented to the plan commission and the town council. And then I served on Madison's plan commission for 5 years or half a term until we moved here. So I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. My name is Bill Graff. I've lived in Monona for over 30 years, originally on Shore Acres Road in our 3-bedroom starter house there, and most recently in the Oak Park neighborhood, which even people in Monona don't even know is there, but it's on the very eastern edge of the city, east of Monona Drive between Femrite and Stoughton Road. And I am also a freelance writer, journalist, and have written about planning issues and housing issues ever since the first story I was assigned as a co-reporter. It was a plan commission meeting about an apartment development. And this was back in the days when TIF districts were brand new and cities were figuring out what to do with these tools. So I've been interested in planning issues in my own community and in Dane County ever since. And wrote an article in Isthmus last year about the prospects for what Monona could contribute to Dane County's urgent need to add new housing and how that can help solve some of the issues and challenges we have in Monona with our tax base and budget sustainability and so on. So appreciate the opportunity to be involved.
Okay.
Well, I'm Dan Brinkman from DSI Real Estate Group. I've been with DSI for over 30 years. So we've had our offices in Monona for all that time and done various developments throughout Dane County during that time, including quite a few in Monona. We were developed the original River Place and were involved in that original Broadway corridor plan back then. So and we have our latest development under construction right now. And it was kind of a traumatic thing because one of my guys brought me a brick from the building we tore down and he handed it to me because it was the first building that I built with DSI, so we've come full circle, but I'm really a huge fan of Monona. I've spent my whole professional life here and I'm very grateful to be included in the group.
Robert Proctor, I'm an attorney at Axley. I do land use and entitlements, do a lot with the Wisconsin Realtors Association as a government affairs director doing public policy, and then represent the Wisconsin Builders Association on legislation too. And so I've done about the last 25 years in real estate. I've lived in Monona about for the last 12. It's good to see you in person, because I don't know if I've ever met you in person.
We're not usually on this side of the
So, yeah, that's it.
Listen.
Hi, Melissa Bedini. I have been a on and off again Monona resident since 2000. So we won't do math. Math is too hard to do. But I currently work for Gorman and Company. We have been doing business since the 80s. So we just celebrated our 41st anniversary. And we create affordable housing and workforce housing in our resort towns in Colorado, and affordable housing and public housing from coast to coast. Our farthest east is Atlanta, and we are doing some developments in Portland, so, and everything in between. I've been working there for about 4 years, and I am marketing communications for them. And prior to that, I worked for Isthmus and The Onion, and a little bit of real estate in between. So, thank you.
Hello, Henry, city staff working under Doug as the new city planner for Monona. Very happy to be here. I just graduated this spring from UW-Milwaukee. And this is my first professional sort of role as an urban planner, and I feel very lucky to be sitting in on meetings and to be discussing the comprehensive plan, because that comes pretty rarely in an urban planner's career. So happy to be doing it right off the bat. So yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks.
Doug Plowman, Director of Planning and Economic Development here with the city, staff lead as well for the comp plan. So I've already sent you plenty of emails. There'll be plenty more coming as well. So looking forward to working with you all. I've been with the city since April of 2019, and looking forward to getting this process underway. It's going to be an exciting effort, and certainly looking forward to working with you all on it. And sort of, I think we've got lots of ideas, having worked with the comp plan that whole time. But definitely, I think it's a critical point in the city. I think this will be a really important effort. So thank you all for your time, and look forward to working with you all.
Patrick Pilla, Alder, on the planning commission for I forgot how long now. 3 or 4 years, something like that. I've been a small business owner for coming on 15 years now, with 3 restaurants and manufacturing, placemaking, that sort of thing. On the Destination Madison Partner Committee, participated in the Southside neighborhood, participated in the South Metropolitan Planning Council, Southside Neighborhood Association president for 10 years, 5 years on the Sun Prairie Chamber of Commerce Board, and was on the Madison Housing Committee for 5 years. And I'm also a landlord and very interested in housing and placemaking, that sort of thing.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go to Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Oh, hi. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I had intended to, but we had some kids shuffling and I have to actually hop off for a 5 o'clock board meeting. But my name is Elizabeth Cook. I am the current president of the Monona Grove School District Board of Education, getting in on my ending out my 6th year right now. So it's my second term there. I have been a Monona resident for just over a year. We moved here around Halloween last year. I live on Ridgewood. Prior to that, I was a Cottage Grove resident for the last 11 years. I, unlike you all, have no expertise in planning. My expertise is in educational policy. So I'm a national expert in educational policy, specifically around comprehensive school mental health, as well as academic and curriculum development, and school attendance and chronic absence. So that's kind of where I come. But I know a lot about kids. I know a lot about families. I know a lot about kind of how kind of your urban infrastructure and your housing infrastructure impacts how families orient to your environment, and then how that impacts their general wellness. So that's what I bring. I'm excited to be here. And again, sorry I'm not there in person with you all.
Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Ben Rohr. I work with Vanderwall and Associates. We have been hired to work with the city of Monona on this project. So I will be the project manager, sort of the face leading it from the Vanderwall side of things, working hand in hand with Doug and his team and you all throughout this process. And we're very excited and looking forward to it.
And I'm Rob Gottschalk, also with Vanderwall and Associates, and I have been working in the planning and design field for the last 30 years, primarily, mostly across the Midwest. The last, I'd say, 10 or so years, almost exclusively, 80% here, just in Dane County. Got kind of tired of running around, so it's pretty nice to have the amount of ability to work in a place that you care about and you're in touch with every day. Most of the time that I have spent has been focused on large scale corridor redevelopment around the city, both from our metro area, both from a vision perspective, but also on staff, oftentimes with the community to help implement and bring the vision to life, both within the public sector and on behalf of the private sector or development corporations. So in my time in this, while Ben is going to be kind of leading the comp plan, my focus will be on the corridors themselves. So that's where my area of expertise will kind of feather in with Ben's. And I just got to say, I'm really excited by this group. The wealth and depth, the breadth and depth of talent and skill in this group is going to make this really interesting, and your perspective. So I'm looking forward to this because it doesn't always play out this way. There's usually some very interests that are so deep or narrowly focused, but it sounds like we really got a broad spectrum here, so that's great.
Yeah.
That's Bill. He really wants a monorail.
Okay. Somebody jot that down.
Monorail. Our meeting's done now.
I know. I'm gonna start singing that song from The Simpsons. You ever see that Simpsons episode where they want a monorail? I'm gonna send it to the group.
Right, all right. Well, thank you. Again, everybody, welcome. And I couldn't agree more. Having appointed everyone and twisted a lot of arms in the process. No, the intention was, Doug and I spent a lot of time talking about the kind of folks that we wanted to bring to the table. I'm super excited about this.
So we've already covered the introduction portion of the meeting, but generally speaking, wanted to give you some background information before we get into the discussion here this afternoon, and give you a little bit of context in relationship to existing plans, a little bit of a data snapshot, what has happened in the city up to this point in relationship to, you have an established comp plan today, what does that mean, all that kind of stuff. And then take an opportunity to do a little polling exercise and have a group discussion, like I mentioned. So that'll be hopefully the vast majority of our time here today, but need to get through some of the background stuff just so you all have some context in relationship to, obviously, your different opinions that you're coming with are valued, and that's why you're on this group. But we want to start high level, broad brush strokes kind of purposes. So we already did the background and introduction, so we don't need to do that. And I just covered this. So generally speaking, this is what we're looking at over the next year in relationship to the project schedule. So we're looking at a 12-month timeline. The goal would be to wrap this up in December of 2026. And it'll be broken down into generally sort of 4 different stages. Right now, we're in the upfront information gathering phase, which you have to do in every planning process. We're going to do this meeting here this evening, talk with the Plan Commission and Council next week in a similar format, engage the public through a workshop and an online survey opportunity, and then have an opportunity for all of us, internally to gather information, data, all that kind of stuff. We'll use that to inform the development of the document, which we'll review with you all in a variety of different meetings throughout the spring and into the early summer. And then we'll have the document to actually review itself. And what we'll do with that is a review with you all, a review with the Plan Commission and the Council, and then a public chance to give feedback. Once we get all that, then we'll be wrapping up into that final stage in the winter of this, I guess, 2026. We're here now, so this year. Just for a little bit of context background, if you may not be familiar with a comprehensive plan, in 1999, the state legislature passed smart growth legislation, which basically required different municipalities throughout the state to update their comprehensive plan. The plan has a 20-year outlook by state statutes, but it's updated every 10 years to provide a fresh sort of perspective as to what's happened and what's to come. There are 9 required elements, and it's truly comprehensive in nature. It covers everything from housing, land use, transportation, economic development, natural resources, all of the above. So it's a broad spectrum of a plan. Obviously, the land use component is the thing that we focus on the most because that's what's tied to the state statutes in terms of consistency requirements that you may be familiar with, zoning and comprehensive plan working hand in hand. But generally speaking, it's really comprehensive in nature, meaning that sort of anything is on the table in respect to, I have an idea or I have a thought about this, it's probably fits within a comprehensive plan scope. So I just covered some of this, but generally speaking, when we're looking at development, preservation, we want to balance those 2 things. We want to pick and look at and analyze where those types of land uses make the most sense for specific areas. Maybe that's staying the same, but generally at the end of the day, future land use map, that's what a key core component of the comprehensive plan is. And that's where that consistency requirement comes in relationship to zoning. But then obviously when we make land use decisions and ultimately development takes place, that impacts things like community facilities and services and transportation and all of the above. So that's where this interconnected component of all of these things, when we're talking comprehensive in nature. And then finally, we want to make this action oriented. We want to make recommendations that provide strategies towards implementation of driving towards the goals, the objectives, the vision that we all set up and try to achieve and strive for. Some of you may have been involved 10 years ago in the 2016 comprehensive plan. That was the last time the city updated this document. As you can tell, 10 years, here we are. That's what the impetus was in relationship to the timing of this type of project. There are other existing plans that stand alone, but will be incorporated, embedded within this type of document. Those include things like the sustainability plan, parks and open space, housing, and you can see those sort of dovetail with some of the elements of the plan itself as well. Then there is area-specific plans, and if we weren't taking this opportunity to update those would be incorporated into this document. But we are taking this opportunity to invest in time and energy into specifically the Broadway and Monona Drive corridors. And why we think this makes a lot of sense from our perspective and why we were excited about this project specifically is this is where Monona has the chance to grow, change, evolve, look different. It's really going to be honed in and focused in these 2 particular areas. And so if we're going to take a deep dive into updating the comprehensive plan, it makes sense to take a deep dive and look at these 2 corridors at the same point. It was referenced earlier in relationship to the Broadway corridor plan in 1989. Obviously, that's now 30 years old. That's a little out of date. We need to do a refresh. Then there's been some design guidelines also incorporated into Broadway. Same for Monona Drive. That's not as old, but the corridor study was done in 2001 with the design guidelines in 2010. Just want to provide a little bit of insight for you what's in these documents. This this is a snapshot of the Broadway corridor plan. It was broken up into 3 different segments. The west side, the middle section around the Monona Drive interchange with the Beltline. And then as you can see on the right hand side, the east side is around the 51 interchange. And so what we will be doing through this process is breaking up the corridor into segments. We just have to do that. These corridors are too big to have one recommendation be all across the board, right? So we're going to use this as a frame of reference tool to start off in relationship to where do those segments make sense now? Are they the same? Do they, do they change? But we wanted to give you that perspective before we come to the next meeting and bring those ideas for what those segments look like. Same with some of the land use recommendations. I know it's a little bit difficult to see this, like you said, it's a copy of a 30-year-old document here, but generally speaking, these nodes of different development patterns are recommendations along the corridor where you have these different segments of different land use recommendations, and those go from high intensity to medium to low intensity, and the high being all the way up to a maximum of 20 stories. Obviously, we haven't seen that size and scale of development occur since this plan was established. But we do want to set the framework for you all that that was a discussion that took place 30 years ago, right? Does it mean it makes sense today? We'll find out as we go through this process. But we want to give you that frame of reference that, 30 years ago, we were already envisioning as a community that this would be a much higher and denser development pattern than it existed prior to this plan and even potentially today. Additionally, there was design guidelines that I had mentioned earlier, some of those that dovetailed what was recommended in the plan and were ultimately adopted by the city. Things like pitched and shingled roofs and four-sided architecture, high quality materials, green space. These are the types of things that we're going to discuss through this process. And we're going to investigate and come up with new recommendations for. I wanted to provide you with a little bit of context, like I said, here to start off with what's in these existing documents.
I gotta say, I'm thinking then Dan's sitting back there going, damn, I could have gone for 20 stories. Hell yes, was that?
Kind of, that was a shocking number.
Yeah.
That was a shocking, when I saw that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I was shocked the same as you. Yeah. So Monona Drive, this is snapshots from the corridor plan that exists today as well. This plan significantly focused more on the right-of-way and the evolution of what Monona Drive looks like today in terms of the street. But there were some land use components to it. You can see the segmentation kind of components of the corridor on the left-hand side. In the middle are some of the recommendations. We'll talk a little bit about the town center that was envisioned. But another recommendation, for example, is residential overlooking the Monona Drive Golf Course. As you can see, that has come to fruition in terms of that recommendation for the most part. So this was an idea, I don't know the context or the backstory to why, but this was an idea in relationship to building a town center in a portion of the Monona Drive where you see between Owen Road and Frost Woods, where Fabroni's and Summit Credit Union and Silver Eagle are today. And so it's a little hard to see, but it had buildings sort of lining Monona Drive and then parking behind, and it was intended to be a sort of gathering space, shopping center, that kind of thing. Ultimately did not come to fruition on the northern half, and then on the southern half, it's more in a residential space in relationship to what ultimately got constructed. And so just giving you all perspective of this was something that was envisioned. And my guess was, and it was related to how do we increase or create identity, that kind of thing along the corridor? How do we create a gathering space, destination district, that kind of thing? So I covered the majority of this, but what I wanted to specifically say is a lot more of this Monona Drive plan is focused on the right-of-way than the actual land use. So there's less in relationship to like a 20-story maximum like the Broadway corridor plan, for example. The design components, you guys, I believe, are more familiar with this. This is more of an active thing in relationship to what the city uses today for the design guidelines and the development projects that are coming this way. So what we will do is take a deeper dive into this, see what's working, see what may need to change and how we can tweak these things. But we do envision having recommendations at the ultimate end of the day, talking about, orientation of buildings and building massing and architecture and lighting and things that were in that plan, those guidelines and are being used today as sort of a baseline understanding of what could be the future there. We also know that Monona is surrounded on all sides by other jurisdictions and has overlapping government jurisdictions. Some of those are doing planning work right now. You guys may be familiar with the Southeast Neighborhood Plan that the city of Madison is doing right now. This is in draft form. This is the future land use map on the right. Monona Drive is sort of right here for perspective purposes. And so this is something that we are keeping track of. City staff is involved in the process with the city of Madison staff. And so we want to make sure we have that context. And this plan will be adopted before the city of Monona's plan will be adopted. So we want these things to work together as much as possible. You also may be aware that there's a WisDOT study for Stoughton Road ongoing. This is just a study. It has not been funded in relationship to whatever the outcome of the study is, but it does have the potential to have some pretty dramatic changes to that corridor and roadway in relationship to land uses surrounding it and the configuration, whether that's a divided highway or a surface street, essentially. So we'll keep an eye on this. We'll keep track of this and see how that influences Monona's plans for that far eastern portion of the Broadway corridor. And then obviously the Beltline, there's ongoing planning work, probably never ends with the Beltline. So this is probably not news to you all, but generally speaking, the WisDOT continues to look at evolution of interchanges, pedestrian and bicycle connections, the lanes on the Beltline itself. So we want to keep track of that and obviously be aware of that as we move forward. So we'll shift a little bit to talking now specifically about the comprehensive plan. And again, sort of teeing up some of the background information again for you all to have some context. So through this process, we're acting as a team, city staff and Vanderwall and Associates. So our focus is the issues, opportunities, housing, land use and implementation chapters of the plan. City staff is focused on those other chapters. We're working together to do that all simultaneously together. Additionally, our focus is the corridor plans and integrating that into the comprehensive plan. So it's a total team effort here. We're doing these all in conjunction with one another. At the end of the day, they're going to be cohesive documents. They're not going to be all separate things. But generally speaking, wanted to give you sort of our roles before we ask you about, or tell you, I guess, just to say about what your role is going to be in this process. So laundry list of different things, but generally speaking, everything is going to be updated in relationship to what's happened, also what we plan for in the future, all the way up from the high level vision statement to goals, strategies, objectives. What we're going to do is take that information we get right now from the upfront gathering to help inform the development of the plan, and then ultimately refine it with you all in the public moving forward. What we do envision is a complete set of brand new land use categories that integrate the Broadway and Monona Drive plans. So everything is working together versus having these separate documents and referencing them and them all looking different and trying to make those things cohesive for you all if you're administering it or you're viewing it through the prism of a development project or just generally as a resident. And then finally, implementation. That's a big component of what we do. We don't only, as a planning firm, do these plans. We often help communities implement these plans. And so we want this to be action oriented. The corridor plans. What we're envisioning for this is starting off with a variety of different alternatives. So like I talked about before, breaking the corridors into segments, looking at different alternatives of, well, what if 20 stories went here, or what if 10 stories? I mean, all of those different things. What are the potential impacts of those different alternatives? And then ultimately, once we land on a recommended alternatives, we move through the development of, recommendations specifically for those, some more detailed concepts, all of those types of things to sort of bring it visually to life illustratively. We'll do that throughout the corridor plan process, but at the end of the day, we want to weigh our different options, select where we want to go with a future sort of guidepost in mind, and then develop what that vision could look like from there. So I mentioned a little bit about roles. You, as this group, are sort of the key function for us in relationship to being our direct guide and helping to shape the plan and provide detailed insight. So we will obviously be talking with the public throughout this process, the Plan Commission, the council. Obviously, at the end of the day, the council makes the adoption decision, but this group was selected to help get into the nitty-gritty details, make sure we're all moving in the same direction. And, ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to recommend a plan from this group that says, council, we think this is the best fit for the city of Monona. So there'll be 5 meetings throughout this process with this group. And we envision those to happen at different stages, with the soonest being probably a month or 6 weeks from now to start diving into things in more depth. Data trends, some people get really excited about data. Some people's eyes gloss over when they look at a bunch of data and charts. We want to just give you a little bit of context. What we aim to do in the next meeting is do a more robust data collection and trends analysis and provide that to you all. So this is just sort of a snapshot for the time being, but giving you a little bit of perspective on some big picture things we saw. As you're all familiar, Dane County is growing at a rapid pace. So 25% over the last 15 years, projected over the next 25 years to be 45% growth. That's a massive number. This projection was just recently done by a regional data group. So we have the sort of convenience of having that just being recently done. But these are big numbers. Where is all that population going to go? We have Monona in respect to that same time period. Over the last 15 years, 20% growth, so big jumps. But in perspective of the previous decades, you can see a decline in population. But in projection moving forward, those same projections from the regional data group looked at over the next 25 years, approximately that same sort of proportional growth percentage at 16%. So what we're looking at is growth at the county level, growth at the city level projected moving forward.
Can you take a question on this now, or would you rather just keep going until the end?
No, if you'd like to ask a question.
Can you tell me if the projection of Monona's population increase is based on a continuation of recent trends, or does it anticipate future events that might take our growth in a faster direction or a different direction?
Can I add something to that too?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take into consideration kids, or are we talking like adults with projection here? Because I know like lots of the buildings that we're building are smaller units. So that can be part of that. And question that too. Thank you.
To answer your question, no, this is raw population. It does not break it into a demographic component of things. Generally speaking, what I understand from the regional data group information that I've viewed and read is that the impetus for this was to look at the region. It was to look at the county as a whole and say, how are we going to grow and how fast are we growing? In particular, the state released projections last year, and they woefully underprojected in comparison to what this group found. And so that was one of the key reasons behind this projection, was to say, state, you did a great job, but no thanks. This is actually what we think is going to happen based off of CARBC, the Regional Planning Commission, the MPO, Dane County, Madison, and UW all coming together to do localized projections. In relationship to the city of Monona itself, they break down each community based off of the population. But I don't know to what level of extent they went into depth about the plan or how that growth comes to fruition. My guess is, without having to having specifically asked that question to that group, is that they took a proportional amount of the Dane County's overall growth and applied it to each municipality based off of their proportion of growth.
Who did the data? Is this at Madison?
The regional data group is
Right at the
the
bottom there.
CARPC, MPO, Dane County, Madison, and Redevelopment.
So what they're saying is we're projected to grow 16% versus Dane County's 45%.
Correct.
We're expected to grow. And I mean, that's massive.
Yeah.
That's a massive difference.
Yes, but I think what I was, and I haven't asked this question, but proportionally, the city grew over the last 15 years by 20%. And so if they extrapolated those growth the past growth
right
to equate to the future growth, past trends to future growth, I should say, that's where I think that they potentially came up with that.
It's just statistics. They're using statistical models.
Correct.
Basically. They're not
Sounds like
using
it's the same numbers that we used for the housing group
Yeah.
at the county too.
I think they just did a linear projection
Sure.
or a compounded projection of some sort.
Patrick, that's exactly why I asked the question, because in the Dane County housing study, there was a table
Yeah.
that projected the number of housing units that each municipality in the county would have to add in order to reach the goal of whatever the ultimate number was.
Right.
And Monona was on for like 32 units or something
Oh.
like that.
Yeah.
And whoever put that data together for that projection was not factoring in 3, 4, 5 projects that were already underway at that moment on Monona Drive and Broadway. So if it's important to have a realistic projection of what our population increase is going to be, it's worth drilling down to find out what they're factoring into that, because some of this might be getting missed.
Well, through this process, you're gonna have the most accurate projection of what your future population will be, far greater than anything done by this regional group.
That-
So I mean,
Great. And that is
because of
And
the
decide how many housing
specific,
units.
exactly, and so we'll have a real good idea of what.
I think to your point, absolutely, is like they did these projections based off of 2020 census numbers. And I pulled DOA's population for 2025 for the city. And you're almost at their projected 2030 total of 9,190 right now.
That's
So
the population right now.
the population right now is 9,084 according to the state. So obviously, potentially you have the ability to grow as a city greater than 100 people over the next 5 years, right? So based off of the amount of projects that we know are in the queue. So this could be under projected.
And we grew by like 400 in the last year, right? And here they have like 400 in 5 years.
So this is one perspective, right? To gather information and like Rob said, we're gonna, get a better perspective as we go deeper into this. But I think that these projections are under what we're gonna see.
I did put, so you can find in the document fact sheet how they calculated for cities and villages, which is a little bit different than how they did for towns. I can just put the language in the chat box, and then I don't know, like if you want to take it and reflect the notes, and so folks want to see how they made those projections. It's documented there.
Thank you.
In the summary.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of comparison in relationship to some other Dane County inner ring sort of abutting Madison suburbs. You see population, tax base, housing units, and I know that all of these communities are larger than Monona, and so there will be some other communities that we compare through this process. But we wanted to just give you a perspective, and really what we're seeing. It's not necessarily the raw numbers, it's the fact that you can see the amount of growth occurring in all of these numbers across the entire county, right? There's a lot, the population's increasing, the tax base is increasing, the housing units, all of those things are going hand in hand with those projected population increases. And so you are all aware, the growth pressures that we're viewing or experiencing, I should say, as a county, as a city, these are sort of reflected in some of these numbers in relationship to just the massive amount of growth that even over the last, from 2016 on. And so we'll update these numbers. We'll continue to work with, looking at different trends. And I know you had brought up, looking at potentially like Cottage Grove or McFarland.
Yeah.
And I think those are good ideas. This was just more of the inner ring sort of around Madison suburbs to start with. When we're looking at the demographics, the community as a whole, the population is aging. What we mean by this is there are more older residents than younger residents in relationship to when you see these bars sort of shifting from 2000 to 2022. Median age has increased over the last 20 years and is significantly higher in Monona than you see across Dane County as a whole.
So this is Monona, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I should have said that. All of the other slides here are Monona specific, yes. In terms of race and ethnicity, predominant white population in relationship to the city, but obviously there are some racial and ethnic minorities that live in the community. And when I looked at this in comparison to 2010 and 2000 numbers, they're pretty similar. There hasn't been a ton of change in respect to those numbers.
And where were those numbers from, the census?
Oh, yes. All of this is from it's a combination of the census and American Community Survey, which is a portion of the census. And so what we're doing right now is basically, because the government shut down, they have not released the next year's ACS data. So we're waiting on that before we do this bigger picture data collection effort and give you more perspective. So that's why we have older numbers in here for now. A couple of other items to note: average household size decreasing in Monona. It's lower than the county and state. This is a trend we see across the state. It's very common. However, that number is fairly low, I would say, for Monona in respect to what we see in a lot of other communities at almost basically 2 exactly. And so this is a combination of an aging community and shifts in younger population. Like you had mentioned, smaller units, for example, people choosing to wait longer or have the option even to purchase a home, start a family, all those types of things. Poverty levels remain relatively low in Monona and compared to the county and the state, but coincides with a higher median income that you see in Monona in comparison to the county and the state overall. But additionally, that comes with a high cost of living. Dane County generally has a high cost of living. As you can see, rents and owner-occupied costs, they continue to rise. Those trends continue to exist. And they're a little bit lower than Dane County overall, but pretty close to where we see those numbers fall at the scope of the county overall. Home values, again, a little bit higher in the city than you see at the county and the state level. What you also see in a lot of communities is the number of housing units that were constructed typically are, could be aging in terms of the amount. So in 1970, pre-1970, we got about 67% of units. Now, proportionally, this has not been adjusted to the amount of new units that have come online in the last couple of years, right? So that proportion could have changed and most likely did change. But it's just a perspective of, a little bit older of a community typically has a little bit older housing stock. I would say a relative balance that the city boasts in terms of owner to renter occupied, 60-40. Madison's closer to that being more of a 50-50 ratio, but a lot of the inner ring suburbs are closer to this proportionate. And a lot of communities that you'll see are actually much more heavy on the owner occupied than renter occupied. So I'd say the city strikes a pretty good balance there. And then not surprisingly, I think for all of you, the interconnectedness of Monona and all of the surroundings, in particular the city of Madison, a lot of people live and work in different communities. And so you see not that many that actually live and work in Monona. Based off of these numbers, we see a lot more people moving around the county and working in different municipalities, living here and vice versa. So that was just probably not a surprising trend, but just something we wanted to bring up. And additionally, something that goes with probably a little bit higher median income, and some of those other values are mostly white collar workers, over 50% in relationship to those business professional kind of occupations. So we had a conversation with the department heads in this room approximately a month ago. We just wanted to give you a little perspective of what we heard from them before we have our discussion here today. So things that they said were working well, that the city of Monona offers a unique and robust amount of amenities to its residents in comparison to some of the other communities of its size. And then there were some model redevelopments that staff really liked, in particular the current, because it offers a lot more amenities to the residents of Monona than just a standalone building, such as some of the other redevelopments that have occurred. And so they said, well, if you're going to replicate things like that, I think you'd have a lot more interest from the residents as a whole than maybe just the people that are moving into that particular building. What's needed to be addressed, they were looking for additional policy guidance and planning to be done, to be built into this project so that they can use that to inform some of their decision making that they need to do moving forward. And then, as we touched upon, neighboring jurisdictional impact is something we need to be cognizant of, in addition to that growth pressure as we develop this plan. And then finally, I think a balance of what we need to take particular note of is the amount of service provision that the city provides in relationship to the growth that is experienced. And if there's a dichotomy between those two things, how do we make up the difference? Or is there a change in service provision? Those are choices that ultimately have to come at some point down the road, because if we're not evenly adjusting those two things at the same rate, then there has to be a trade-off somewhere.
And there was plenty of other perspectives.
Yes.
That was a very boiled down version. There was a lot of really good comments from the department heads that provided some.
So for about 10 minutes, I just wanted to do a polling exercise with you all. What we'll do is use our smartphones, and the poll will actually pop up on your smartphone, and we'll see it in live time on the screen. And what this is intended to do is just be sort of a fun exercise to get some perspectives, to get the juices flowing. What we did is we intentionally left each as a singular option, so you can only pick one answer choice from the options that are provided. We know that you might want to answer all or all of the above, but this is intended to try and start thinking about how we try to boil down and prioritize things. When we get done with the poll, we'll go through it relatively quickly because we want to spend the rest of the time talking with you all in a discussion format. So if you see something in particular that you want to discuss as a result, or something that might be missing as a topic here, save that towards the discussion format so we can sort of zoom through this poll in a relatively quick time period. So I hope this works for you, Elizabeth. I have not tried it out via Zoom before, but we're going to see how this goes.
It should work, but do you have a new code? Because okay, there it is. The code that that screenshot on the slide, because they expire. So
Yep.
Let me put in my new code.
So right at the top,
sorry. Yeah.
You go to menti.com on your smartphone. And then once you go to menti.com, you will see an opportunity to add in a code. And the code is at the top there. It's 68997631. Sorry. All right, so we got 6 people in so far. The first question is just a test question that should pop up on your end.
Let's see. Do folks, is it working or is it? Yes. Okay, everybody's good.
Didn't ask me if I was a robot.
All right. I think we have 9. I think that is it. in terms of people in the poll. And now we have 9 out of 9 that have taken it. Looks like there is not strong support for thinking the basketball team has a positive outcome this year, but it's subject to change. I guess we'll see how it goes, but based off of the last couple of games, I would agree with you too.
Past performance does not guarantee future results.
They're only projections. All right, the next question, we're going to talk a little bit about community assets. What's working well today? What do you believe Monona can build on over the next decade? Basically prioritization of sort of what do you think is the top asset of the community? I know all of these are a component of assets within Monona itself, but we want to talk a little bit about, you know, is that housing? Is it natural resources and parks and open space? Is it the small town community feel? The business environment and workforce, or is it destinations, restaurants, entertainment, shopping, destinations, all that kind of stuff? All right. So it looks like from the people who responded to the poll, small community feel mixed with an urban and suburban setting. I think that is something that is an identifier of Monona today, and absolutely is a component of why people choose to live, work, and play here. So I think we'll move to the next one here. So what do you see as the most pressing need for improvement? So now we're talking about potential issues or challenges. Strengthening that identity, that sense of place, creating additional destinations through that process, transportation, housing, environmental sustainability, creating more jobs, opportunities, tax base, and then enhancing, improving community services that are provided to the community residents. Okay. That's interesting. It's a pretty strong indicator that housing seems to be one of the top priorities here, at least for this group. So that's helpful context. All right, so we're going to talk specifically now about some housing issues and what would be the top for you in terms of what needs to be addressed in Monona. Is that affordability, availability, diversity of unit types, single family teardowns, and reconstruction? Okay, a little bit more split. And obviously all of these things sort of go hand in hand with one another. We know they're interconnected and interrelated. Diversity of unit types is the highest, but we know that affordability and availability go with that in particular.
Kind of like there's 0 single family teardowns and reconstruction.
We had to ask the question. We didn't know.
It's like, well, the question is like, how do we want to address it? Like, do we want more of it, or do we want it not to happen anymore?
That's
right.
That's a discussion for
like what do we mean by address?
So now we're looking at economic development issues and opportunities here. Moving forward, is that increasing our non-residential tax base and employment growth? Is that creating more high density redevelopment options? Is that creating additional unique destinations and attractions? Is that creating more tourism opportunities? Again, they're interrelated, they're interconnected. Doing one of these things is going to impact the other kind of thing. Okay. So we have sort of a balance here between high density redevelopment and additional unique destinations and attractions. I think those two things go hand in hand, will be part of the corridor plan, and what we will see as part of the future of those areas. Transportation, same question about our top issues that we need to address. Is that specifically related to sidewalks, transit, bicycle connectivity, traffic speeds, parking, Again, a little bit of interrelationship between these ideas as well. Okay. Interestingly enough, sidewalks and then transit. So obviously, with transit services, we want those to be interconnected so you can walk to them. So those two things are connected. And likewise, I know sidewalk connectivity is something that seems like it's priority. Land use issues that we need to address. First option is increasing mixed use buildings and development, allowing taller, larger redevelopment projects, improving the overall approval process and our city ordinances, improving design requirements, reducing parking requirements. Again, obviously,
They're so interconnected.
They are.
I'd rather rank these.
All of the
I know. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's good feedback. I mean, we could do a ranking one next time, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
At least this question. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so a little bit more diversity of answers that we have here, but mixed use development, taller and larger redevelopment projects. Again, those are probably going to go hand in hand with one another. All right. So this one, you have the opportunity to type in an answer to. And so we're looking for a couple of words in terms of your opinion, top priority. What are you looking to be addressed within Monona over the next decade from your perspective? You're coming to this planning process. Could be a couple of words, don't get me wrong, but you have the opportunity to type that into here, and then it will create a word cloud for us on the screen with the answers. So
we can only
Say
one word.
No,
well, you can
One
do
phrase
multiple.
or
I just
phrase.
don't want you to write a paragraph. If you could avoid writing 3 sentences, that would be great.
We'll just give you 30 seconds.
But Ben has it set up for multiple responses too, so you can put in more than one idea.
Yeah. All right. So we've got majority of people responding. Housing is the biggest word. That means that it was used the most, and that aligns with some of the things that we saw in relationship to. We're got some shifting going on. Affordability is now going hand in hand with housing, obviously, and several of those other ideas that are on the screen. And so this is helpful perspective, and I appreciate that. But we do need to move to the next one, which will also be a write-in option. And we haven't talked a ton about the corridors yet in terms of these questions, but wanted to just ask the general question. The Monona Drive corridor should be a place where, so we're looking towards the future. It could be what you use the corridor for today or what you view the corridor as today. It could be what you would like it to see in the future in terms of how it evolves, how it changes, but just as a sense of place, in terms of what you do with the corridor, how you interact with the corridor. Nice. So not as unanimous as the last one in terms of, we don't have a giant word up there on the screen, but obviously a lot of these things interact with one another other than no cats. I don't know about that one. But yeah, we have, some transportation related things, some destination related things. Obviously some place-based, shopping, dining, entertainment, all of that kind of interconnects with one another. Oh, we got more cats now.
Uh-oh. It's a cat fight.
No.
So can I just interject one little thing relation to this question, and kind of the plan overall, even as I know you guys have been hired only to do Monona Drive court plans. I, as we've often discussed internally, a central gathering place for this community is the Surrey campus. And while we don't envision quarter plan per se, I think when we are going out to our community, it would be terrific to be able to get some input on that, because this really has a sense of place for this community in a big way. Already people come to the library, they go to the pool, they use Winco Park. And I think in a sense, if Monona ever had a main street that people might identify it, Nichols Road right here is kind of the main, it's kind of the main street. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because that's not what I would like to get some feedback as part of this process. Yeah.
And we should probably definitely talk about Maywood also, like planning for that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's,
I would imagine that
Part of
we'll
it,
do
yeah.
a master, yeah, I mean, yeah.
but I think it's a really interesting point to think about kind of that section of Monona and how much identity there is within that piece of it, of which I think Maywood and sort of the hill behind Maywood are a part of that. So I agree. I think as we're surveying the community, even if it's not in depth, at least to start to think through what does that look like? What are the potentialities there? I think is a good thing to do. And I think people would appreciate that also based on the feedback and comments that I've gotten just about Maywood specifically.
Yeah.
It makes me think about Madison as a place that has multiple neighborhoods, and Monona doesn't necessarily have, defined neighborhoods per se, but like loose neighborhoods, Frostwoods.
Except for
and there's-
Frostwoods, yeah.
They're different,
Right.
Frostwoods is a defined neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And, the notion of thinking about Maywood as a separate thing.
I think probably the folks on the lake in
Would
Tonawatha
think
would think of it
separate,
themselves as
right,
sort of
separate
defined
thing,
area.
right?
But you're right about that. Yeah. And I know it's one of the things that, we talked about is, especially, in the last 6 months is, we've been thinking about city facilities as sort of one-offs, like this facility over here, this facility over here, the public safety building, rather than thinking of it as the campus and a master plan for the campus.
Really,
So,
Yeah, I think one additional thing that dovetails exactly with what you said, Mayor, is does Monona Drive or a portion of Broadway or some variation thereof become another gathering place that's like a main street for Monona? Is there another node that's established in one of those corridors? Maybe it's a version of this, or maybe it's not. And so that's where I think these two things overlap, right? Is, well, what if we want to focus our attention on creating that space around one of those intersections at Monona Drive versus right here? I don't know, I don't have the answer to that right now, but I think it's just a question that sort of goes hand in hand with it, right?
Certainly a valuable one. In fact, I would say that that's one of the reasons why current has been so successful is that that has become a gathering place. You know, that's on Broadway, and I would argue certainly the potential, in my view, of West Broadway and the whole Southtown area. That is undoubtedly going to explode, starting with, you know, Topgolf as the anchor and some developments that have already been discussed from there. I think that has the same thing. I think that has the potential to be a gathering place. But to your point around, it goes back to the old Monona Drive plan where they envisioned something for the town center on Monona Drive.
Yeah.
Right. So not making Monona Drive a main street because it doesn't really, it's a major thoroughfare. It doesn't lend itself to parallel parking, you know, and people, in my view, just because of the volume of the traffic, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a town center connected to it.
And one of the things that the Monona corridor study talked about was that town center notion. Part of the reason it sounded like that was to reduce curb cuts, because there's so many curb cuts and that takes away the like town feel of a road like that. And so that, you know, that could serve a lot of purposes if we could do something with Monona Drive to give it that more, or parts of it, more of the town center feel.
Absolutely. So I do have the same question about the Broadway corridor as our last poll question here. When we're thinking of what kind of place is the Broadway corridor? Nothing yet about pets, so.
Well, everyone already has their dogs there, so.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that the gateway popped up in this one, but did not pop up as far as the Monona Drive one was concerned.
So I just don't know what plan was gateway. The notion of a gateway is really, it's really cool.
Absolutely. I thought it was, I'm just curious that word didn't get as much use in the last.
Thought this was harder. The Monona Drive one, it's harder.
It depends on where you're coming from too.
Yeah.
Do you need a gateway if you're coming from Madison, or is it just kind of an extension of the east side where you're coming from? I mean, there are so many people that we all run into, if it's at Crema or the Muskie or Farm and Fleet or whatever. They don't know if they're in Monona or if they're in Madison. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't really live their lives based on what the political boundaries are.
Right.
They live based on what the amenities and what the functions are they're looking for.
Looking at that map, I don't know either, because it's like totally
Just don't even go as far as Farm and Fleet, just look on Monona Drive.
Exactly.
You see it, yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. People get confused all the time just on Monona Drive, which blocks are ours and which blocks are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Terribly
it literally
confusing.
changes block.
Yeah.
On the,
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts.
All right, so we got some carryover in relationship to some of the things we heard on the Monona side of things and some new ones. like I mentioned, gateway, waterfront access, high-rise views, taller buildings. So it's great perspective. I appreciate it, and hopefully this was a more fun way than others to try and gather a little bit of upfront input
I can
here.
just underscore something about the walkable and bikeable part of Broadway. Theoretically, yes, there are bike lanes there and there are sidewalks. That is a horrific place to try to get anywhere by bicycle. It's just awful to be in the middle of that traffic and to have the amount of debris and gravel that accumulates in the bike lanes.
Yeah.
I only went flying over my handlebars once, but it might not be the last time. Anyway, there is a fair amount of pedestrian activity and bicycling activity that takes place up and down Broadway. I see dog walkers all the time, people pushing strollers, little kids.
Dog walking is
all
kind of
ages.
surprising too. The
Yeah.
dog
That
walking
is
piece, it's like, why?
Very surprising.
Unless it's the only, the only option.
Yeah, and as that corridor reaches critical mass and we have more folks enjoying that area, that pedestrian and bicycle safety is something really to look
Yeah.
at.
And as depending on what happens with Stoughton Road, and that is supposed to, they're gonna have, according to what I know, they're supposed to have another meeting in the spring. And they're supposed to have the recommendations to the state by the fall. So they're coming up on the same
It's a
timeline.
state, I mean, don't hold your breath on that timeline.
Right. The only thing that I was encouraged to hear is that Stoughton Road is actually not just one of the most dangerous and deadly roads in the county, it's in the state. So it's popping up on their algorithm for danger. So it's putting it higher up on the list of stuff. And the kinds of things they're looking to do are less than what they were when we were working on Stone Road. But on that end of Broadway, I mean, depending on what WisDOT does with Stone Road, I mean, like the sky's the limit in terms of what could happen. I mean, one of the proposals is, not being able to go over to Dutch Mill, going up, making a round corner up north on Stone Road. There are a lot of different options, so. It'll be interesting.
Well, isn't Broadway redesign or reconstruction in the queue for the next few years?
It is, I would say, within the next 5, I want to say, that yes, a significant portion of Broadway reconstruction.
Or with WisDOT?
County.
That's county, that's right, okay.
Yeah.
And that's a big opportunity,
Mhm.
Right.
potentially dependent upon the direction of the plan.
Well, and I really appreciate that comment. And I think the gateway comment is really interesting too, because thinking about Broadway sort of on the other side. So if you're coming down from where the current is and going sort of towards the Beltline, it's really unpleasant. It's not nice to walk. It's not nice to bike. It's not nice. And you come out of, and I think Monona Drive is different because it has a nice feel, whatever direction you're coming in from it, right? It feels like a nice transition in and it feels really good. And even walking down Monona Drive is busy, or biking down Monona Drive is busy, but it doesn't feel unpleasant. Like that section of Broadway feels incredibly unpleasant and unwelcoming. And so I think that there's some opportunity there to think about, as a central thoroughfare into our city, what do we want that to look and feel like? And as an extension of that pocket of the current, which I thought was a really good point, Mayor, around that has become a great gathering place, particularly in the summer, but particularly in the wintertime, right? Where a lot of families come outside of Monona to use the river rink and to go to below deck and all of that great stuff. But then you get out of there like 2 blocks and you're like, oh, this is all really gross and unpleasant. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there in that section as well.
And we've certainly, toss around ideas, and I'm sure it'll come out in this as well, the whole idea of connecting up, for instance, because there's already, the Capitol Trails. Trail right there, and I think that, but we don't connect to them.
Right.
And it would be relatively easy to do in that Broadway, to connect to the bike trails that already exist.
Yes.
And the same thing is true as it relates to sidewalks and.
Can I just make one, that part of Broadway that is unpleasant, a lot of that I think is Madison. right?
North side.
Yes,
on the road.
along
No,
the
some of it,
condos and-
not-
Yeah.
Some of it is
Yes,
off Broadway
Some-
draft house, isn't that
that's
Madison?
Madison.
Like,
That whole side is
it's
Madison.
Yeah.
Madison?
Yes.
Okay,
One side's Monona, one
Yeah.
side's Madison.
Yeah, the one section, right? We do have a section of it, right?
Only
Yeah.
on, well,
From off Broadway
Yeah,
to Bridge
to Bridge
Road.
Road is all
It's
Madison.
Madison
Yep.
on the north side and Monona on the south side.
No,
And
on south
From
side.
Bridge Road east, it's Monona on both sides.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell, but most of the north side of Broadway is in Madison until you get to the current roughly in the east. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to be conscious of your time. We have about 15 minutes left. We don't have an open-ended discussion here to gather feedback from you all. Obviously, if you have additional comments that we aren't able to get to, feel free to provide those directly to myself, to Doug, to the mayor, whoever you feel comfortable with, and incorporate that into our discussion. But wanted to open up the floor based off of what we saw in some of those responses and based off of anything we may not have covered in our 8 questions. Were there other items that you'd like to discuss here in terms of things that would it be helpful for us to know in particular, specific topics, priorities, and then also, generally speaking, I want to hear from you guys, like what do you guys think? Did we capture whatever was the top priority that you wanted to be addressed as part of this project? Because that's always something that we like to do is understand what this group's prioritization is, and that's what we tried to do with this. But we might not have hit every single thing, obviously, and so I know I'm throwing out a lot of different questions at you, but generally I just want to get a conversation started. If anybody feels comfortable, just sort of back and forth about either a reaction to a poll question or generally something else you wanted to discuss here today.
I just had actually 2 things. We did, are we recording this?
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it was on.
yes.
Okay. My only thought was, because this is such a stellar group, that it might be helpful to schedule for like almost all the meetings at once. Like, or at least a couple of meetings out at a time, because I'm just thinking in terms of attendance. That only going 1 month at a time, it just might be difficult to.
It's much better to get on my calendar right away.
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm good at,
yeah,
It also creates a natural deadline.
Also makes me not schedule other things.
Yeah.
Really, yes.
right, so
I'd schedule them all.
that work.
Okay, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just know so as we get into summer, it gets
Yep.
more challenging with people's
Well,
vacation
We're with you,
schedules.
yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, they'll all generally be in this room in the afternoon or morning if that works best for you guys, but we can do the polling and get some dates nailed down for at least the next 3, because those are gonna happen pretty quick here, so.
And the next meeting is gonna be really kind of, today was like, okay,
Mhm.
what's the general gist? What's on your mind? So we can just start to understand where your heads are at a little bit more. Next meeting, we're gonna dive into some more specific things, but it would be good. Like, what are your big issues? What are the things, what are the opportunities that you guys are thinking about coming to the table with that you're like, man, I really think we should be focused on X? I mean, we'd love to get those broader strokes that you're thinking about now as we start developing some things to discuss in more detail. So that's what we'd like to do here the last 20 minutes or whatever.
I mean, a couple things I would say, kind of broad brushstrokes. One of the things that I keep coming back to is we don't have all of the property on Monona Drive and Broadway. We have a percentage of that, and I'm very curious about what Madison's plans are. If they have plans, do they have plans? One of the things that I just noticed on Broadway is, there's one bus line that goes through there, the G bus seems to take. And I feel like that is an open question to me. Because when I think about and take a look at how things are gonna roll out for us. I mean, the way you guys worked in the Capital East, right, the East Wash. So that plan comes out and it juices East Washington Avenue. And all of a sudden, there's development all over the place on East Washington. It's the place to be. I really believe that is what we're gonna see here. I mean, honestly, I think that Monona has the potential for crazy stuff. We're closer to downtown Madison than just about any other neighborhood in Madison. And so that's an open question that I have, and I feel like if Madison owned just a little bitty tiny thing, it wouldn't be a big deal. But that is not what is going on here. And so that's just sort of one question I have.
Yeah.
The other sort of general area that I just have always kind of wondered about is this area called Pirate Island. Pirate Island. And it's sort of a quandary to me. I don't know anything about it.
There's only one pirate that lives on the island.
Is there?
That's the name of the realtor who was on the city council, gave it to make it more attractive than it was.
Like,
Yeah.
it's one weird area that I don't know why. I've always thought that could be really cool.
It could, there's
Now
one developer that owns almost all, one landlord that owns almost all of it.
Of the whole island.
Of all the rental.
Oh.
And it is a TIF district, you know, because. It's a TID, because. Precisely because we do see incredible potential there and we would love to. Even if it was the current owner, we really want to incentivize, the development, the. Restoring, if you will, of that whole area.
And it also is an area that's less expensive too. It's naturally affordable.
And it's by the current and it just has all the things.
There's even a few single family homes on it too.
Right, it's like a weird thing, but it just is so unique. You know, Monona reminds me of, like, we have so many events and we have so many like things to do and so many family focused things. And we've got 4th of July and we've got all the more unique kind of weird spaces that we can develop. I think it's really interesting and cool. The current is kind of a weird thing. Like we have a skating rink. Like who has?
That's fine. I always think of that as Monona's living room, kind of.
Right.
You know? So that's when I think of Grand Crossing. That's how I describe it.
That was
There you
such
go,
a,
Bob,
there
that's
was like a
definitely-
lucky and a commitment,
Mm.
like to be able to get all those properties and Monona put a lot of money into it to get it done. And then it's got all the rooftops and parking to support that stuff. Like Monona Drive is gonna be, I think, more difficult. There's the properties are so thin. And then trying to accumulate them when I think they're cash cows, that's my guess. Like Lacali's is like that, you know, it's a metal building. I bet you they got nothing into it and they're making all this money. And so like
They're
when
not
you
gonna
come
let
in
go.
and you
Yeah.
say you want a mixed use development there. And you're like, you don't have enough room to go back and you don't have enough, and how high can you go? And you want first floor retail, which kills, like, I mean, it's the worst part of a development. And so that's where I think Broadway's got more potential right now than, I mean, I want all of it. I want the gateway, the walkability. I love all of that. I just struggle. I worry our aspirations will then prevent like the growth that could happen. Do you know what I mean? As we ask for mixed use and retail and all these things, and you just can't, it's hard to make it happen.
I mean,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, maybe Broadway is the corridor that gets developed first, or something, or.
Cause I'd buy all of Monona Drive by the cash. I just don't know how long cause it's basically, you get off John Nolan and you go right around the lake, all the way down Atwood, all the way up Monona Drive and right back onto it's all going, like, as this growth happens, it's gonna happen. I just don't know like how it happens.
Well, the place where my restaurant is,
Yeah.
that should be redeveloped.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the natural, plus the building really is kind of in relatively poor shape. But there's too many owners that own the building. right? There's four that own the same zero lot line, so that's exactly what you're saying. It makes it difficult to do something about that. And then, yeah, where would parking go? You know, it'd have to be significant underground parking if you were going to scale that more than like 3 stories. So
should we be developing a Monona Drive plan? You know what I mean? Like, what is our plan?
That's gonna be.
Well, I feel like
Study.
we should think about what side would be
first priority.
but also what side we would like to see, like, I think more retail, like to think you're gonna have mixed use down the whole thing. And so.
No, because the other way to handle that is instead of having mixed use in every building, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I know as a business owner that operates restaurants, there's a ton of spaces out there that aren't getting filled. I'd rather see, in some ways, it's just my opinion, and I think you and I have talked about this before, Doug, like clusters of like so you walk someplace instead of having it in your building. So you have a cluster of retail and entertainment and then housing, and then you walk from the housing to that. And maybe that's a little bit more palatable than constantly trying to shoehorn, retail on the first floor of every housing complex we build.
2 more quick points on Broadway on different ends of it. And this is a good conversation, and I think that we need to spend more time kind of developing what you all are talking about right now. On Broadway, when I was working on the Isthmus story, we sent a drone camera up to take photographs of what the potential views would be from a 4th floor, a 5th floor, however, high you want to go. And people have looked at that 30-year-old Monona corridor or the Broadway corridor plan and said 20 stories. Yeah, like that's ever going to happen. Well, almost every medium-sized city in Wisconsin, Wausau, La Crosse, they have taller buildings than we do in most parts of Madison, except for the campus. So I don't see any reason other than FAA airspace restrictions or hydrology or whatever that we can't be looking at high rises that have spectacular views of the Isthmus, because the drone, once it got up to that 4th floor level, now you're starting to see the Capitol and the lakes, and on the other side of the building, wetlands and sunset that corridor things.
Is another reason though why you don't see those tall buildings in Madison is because of the state law for Capitol View shed corridor height limitations.
Yeah.
So not like, I think where Sal's is, Galaxy is what?
12 stories.
Is it 12 total? So it started out at 10 and then Madison has a program where you can add bonus stories. So they were allowed to add 2 bonus stories to that based on, I think they had solar, and then they have live work units on Main Street. But and maybe affordable units. I don't know what
there are some affordable units in the building.
So that's what Madison does as one of its strategies to allow developers to build up rather than out. And it was, but they can, because the Capitol is here and it
Right, I was
goes,
gonna say,
the
but
elevation.
they can only go so high
Right.
because of the Capitol.
I don't think we have that
We don't.
limitation, right? So,
And somewhere between that maximum and what we're doing now, there's a lot of potential. Each one of those extra stories, those are Monona's cornfields. That's what Sun Prairie has and what Middleton has and what, every place else. But that's where our potential tax base growth lies. And every time we allow a low density, 1-story, one-off, single-use building, then we've kind of
it's like
squandered the potential for that site.
The dental office. It's like that should have. I don't know why they built the dental office with no 4 stories above it for housing.
which one is that bridge?
On Broadway, right?
Broadway and Bridge?
Yes, yeah, because if it were me building it, I would want those units to pay for the building I built.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you why though, because my wife used to work in an office upstairs from one of those dental practices.
Oh, yeah.
And it was right above the pediatric recovery room. When those kids came off anesthetic, you could hear it through the ventilation. Anyway, so the second piece on Broadway I wanted to mention is that on the eastern part of Broadway, the section east of Monona Drive, between Broadway and Femrite, there's a huge area there that's currently dominated by light industrial buildings and commercial uses, some of which are thriving businesses, locally owned businesses, and I want to be sensitive and support them. But what's unique about that area is that I have found living in our Oak Park neighborhood where there's about 40 single-family homes, 3 very nice condo buildings. We can walk to a full-service supermarket, to either of 2 primary care health clinics,
Right.
UW Health and Unity Point Health. There are not 1, but 3 nature parks with hiking trails.
Right,
We've got a grandson at Aldo Leopold Preschool,
right.
and we walk through the Edna Taylor trails on the way home. It's like a little house on the prairie experience, right in the middle of the Madison metropolitan area. So all of these things would be tremendous amenities for more people living in residences in that area. If there's some way to balance and incentivize and, work with those businesses that they may be able to serve their customers and increase their profits by moving to a site someplace that has better access or more room.
Well, and to your point, Bill, I will tell you that, when we passed the North Point development, there was definitely part of the, planning commission that was like, I don't want to live there. Why would you want to live across from us? People don't want to live there. Number one, and number two, because they just saw it as being, everybody wants to live by the library. Nobody would want to live down there. Well, I spent 25 years in Chicago, the most expensive housing, right on top of Lake Shore Drive, and even when you go up 5 stories or 4 stories, which is what the North Point building, like the apartment buildings are, you have a better view across the Beltline, can't hear the Beltline, and you have a better view across the Beltline to the lakes than you do when you're in the current, top of the current. So that, again, that whole area, and certainly going from 51 across, you're absolutely right. I think it's good.
We also live in an echo chamber where we're like, yeah, I used to live in those apartments all the time. Like I lived in Boston right by the subway because I wanted to be by the subway, but it was loud.
Right.
But nowadays, of course, I live in the neighborhood. Yeah, now people are like, well, why would you want to live? Yeah, of course. Like, I'm not choosing to live in an apartment on Broadway anymore because I have 4 kids.
Right.
But my wife and I always talk about we can't wait to live in a condo or an apartment on the Near East Side.
We talk about that too.
Yeah. Like, cause I like city living. I grew up in Milwaukee. I've always lived in the city, but I always feel like, cause I hear that all the time and I'm like, but yeah, your path, it's the same as everybody forgets they lived in an apartment, with those people that don't have skin in the game. And you mean, you're like your kids, your nieces, yourself 20 years ago.
I mean, and Dan, your place, the same thing. It's gonna have fantastic views, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be
we did the drone thing over there, and it's not quite as high as we would have liked to have gone, but hey, it'll be nice, very nice.
I like the notion of your note on Monona Drive, kind of these nodes. It reminds me of Shank's Corners. You know how they're all the single story, and then around them there are apartments where people come, and it's super vibrant. That's what.
Well, you
that's the vibe
activate
that we
you see people going from place to place instead
outdoor
of
seating.
driving their car and parking.
Right. It's that.
How does planning though do that? Like I'm always kind of like I would love to draw the pictures and show them the stuff, but I'm always afraid that once you come in and you try to like put something there, all of a sudden you're like, well, it doesn't really, because once you do it, you got to be consistent, to rezone it. The plan's going to govern, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I've got to figure out a way to do this. It's the same with like parking and everything,
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I don't know it. I mean, I've always wondered, like, how much does planning spur it? I mean, obviously, if you're going to say this is residential, that's commercial, that's obvious. But you start saying 4 stories or 8 stories or whatever, and it becomes like, well, I don't know. Like, I would think you wanted to see that stuff get redeveloped. Tell them you can put 8 stories of residential there, and all of a sudden the highest best use and how much you can buy it for allows somebody to buy it. But you say you want 4 stories, and you're like, good luck buying it from, when they're collecting rent from you. Good luck putting that together.
No, you're right. I mean, going through the planning process and essentially entitling property at a higher potential will reshape the market a bit.
Mm.
But I guess to answer maybe your first question, it also, there's gonna be pieces that you can influence by, you know, your plan, your land use, your development intensity. And then there's gonna be parts or districts or areas that if the way the city is right now, I mean, I can kind of cut to the chase and these things, like the way that pattern has developed in some ways to date. If you really want to create some of the things that you may be talking about, the city is going to have to take an active participant role to make that happen. It won't just happen by accident, more than likely.
As in
when you
like
mean
the
a
current,
role-
where we bought the property and then,
I would say that the triangle, the current
Right.
area
Yeah.
is an example where it's like, okay, if we really want to create this, we're gonna have to assemble these properties, we're gonna have, you know, that's a whole.
That or saying no to something that pops up that may be
Inconsistent.
okay right now, but it's inconsistent with this big picture vision of this is what we want this area to be. Like, there might be some hard no's that you have to say if that's the long game that you want to play into.
I mean,
well, and then the third thing, the third thing, wouldn't it be also adapting the zoning?
Right.
Or improving
Hmm.
the zoning that would reflect what we want to, would be helpful, because right now, in some ways, as an example, you know, the CDD, you know, is, I mean, as far as the plan commission is concerned, like, it's the greatest thing that they ever hit, you know, because they have, right, because
I looked at it and I was like, you guys don't have anything right
right?
now. Okay.
Am I right? But,
Yeah.
you know, from a developer
It's frustrating.
standpoint, it doesn't, you know, right?
Yeah, I mean,
There's no certainty, because you're walking into the whims of,
yeah,
Right?
like my experience was that the plan commission, the CDA and the city council weren't always on the same page.
yeah.
Just, you know, like, you know, like.
It's tough like
Yeah, and, but I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, it's easy to, like, it's different people. I wonder sometimes, like I would love to know if I'm wrong, because I didn't come through planning, but I've always been like, we need a lot of density if we want those places to, the type of places we want to go to. The current is a lot of roofs over there, not just the current itself, but it was also perfect. Like you said, Pirate Island's right there, all the neighborhoods are right there. It's so easy to get to.
Yep.
It's got a ton of parking and you still can't park there. You can walk there, and so, like, I don't know, I see, like, kind of on Broadway, I wouldn't mind seeing 10 stories
Me either.
and 12 stories, like,
Well,
it's along the Beltline. I mean, it's got the
Like-
water there, so
like
it's
say-
perfect, so, like,
that, right?
I mean, I don't know if it's ready for it. You guys did the study, I mean.
Well, the plan commission would. It would be a complex conversation on the plan commission if we got a proposal for a 12-story building like
Yeah.
today,
Yeah,
right?
Although I think we're getting more, the
Yes.
more we do, the more comfortable they're getting
Mhm.
with going. I think.
so how did it go from the East Washington plan to, because the first really big development, I think, was the Galaxy. And there was,
Constellation.
those were long plan, the Constellation, this is Constellation.
That was the first.
Those were long meetings, and there were people who were really
like that, Tom.
really questioned the financial viability of building a building that tall, because nothing else was on East Washington Avenue like that. So how are those developers attracted to develop in a certain area? I mean,
Auto got significant, sorry, Auto got significant incentive from the city in order to build that building. And then I know 10% of it is still affordable at this point, or at least, you know, those units in there move around depending on occupancy. But he got a significant amount of, wasn't that like one of the biggest TIF amounts in the city at that time, I think? Among other assistant, I can't remember.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, it was
No.
big, but not.
Not that big.
crazy. Okay, yeah, I mean, the city
Well, it's
doesn't
crazy
do
for the city
anything.
because the city never does tip that's not
Right.
purely,
But
affordable.
yeah, they definitely, I mean, when you're that's a that was a total pioneer.
Yeah.
job, right? I mean, Otto said, hey,
He rolled the dice
I
too.
wanna do this, I'm gonna roll the dice, I'm gonna do something that others wouldn't do, and obviously after that, everybody's like, you know, the usual developing, you know, tire kicker, yeah, well, why didn't we do that? Well, because they're willing to take that risk.
Exactly, he was the pioneer in the whole thing, but.
And there, to get back to, I don't wanna take any more time, but to get back to Ben's, you gotta say no to projects that are good, but not great. I mean, ULI, the biggest downtown developer in the city of Madison, came forward with a proposal for that block that was 3 and 4 stories, and you know, we took a leg at it and said, yeah, you can do this, it'd be okay, and it was our belief that the market opportunity was significantly greater. The city eventually said no to one of their biggest, you know, players in town. And then we re-released the RFP, and that's when it's changed.
I still remember when Kurt Brink brought forth the Archipelago Village, right? And I was on the housing committee then, and I was like, I would love to see something like that.
Right.
But I was like, you know.
But it changed the conversation.
Yeah, it did.
I was just thinking of the pocket neighborhood.
Well, Pirate Island is another one of those, I don't know how,
Yeah.
I would love to see it redone, but I suspect that apartment building along Broadway on the water is a cash cow. You know, like, cause they're gonna do a multiply, I mean, it's not. Like, if you really wanna, look what the city paid for the lots across the street from mine, when mine was vacant and those were rented, that's big, like, you're, like, the number is gonna be really hard to make those numbers work.
I mean, you'd have to dredge all that too, and then have the ability to have boats in there.
What I really think will happen back there is, to your point, I think Monona's the perfect place. I have to go to Wanakee a little bit, and it's crazy to me people drive that far. And so I think eventually the numbers, unfortunately, affordability will be a huge issue here. And then you'll start seeing those numbers be able to work, but it might be a gentrification of, you know, like. It was a lot more I mean, the current, I assume, is unaffordable compared to what was there for some of the housing. I mean, there wasn't a ton, it was a lot of commercial.
There was no
housing.
Right.
Okay.
It was all commercial.
Yeah.
Or,
They bombed out
Yeah.
brown
Yeah.
fields.
Yeah.
I mean, with a lot of, small businesses that were struggling, like buildings that were empty.
So can I ask a weird question? Since I know we're over time, but do we get developers in Monona that are big developers? That are developers that we want?
DSI.
DSI?
Depends how you define big, I guess.
You've got development on, is it on Broadway? Is that the one you're doing?
River
Okay.
Place.
Yeah, we did
River
River
Place.
Place, we're redoing River Place right now. We do a lot of multifamily all over Dane County.
Yeah, I think right now I don't know what is big, like, obviously.
Yeah, DSI is big.
But I mean, a lot of the bigger ones are looking to do, like, Core Campus is a client of mine, you know, they're doing $200 million buildings, they're not, like, there's nothing. The building, any development you do here wouldn't be that big. You know, like, until you get, I don't know.
So you completely redevelop Southtown.
Yeah. So if you think like 150 units is the smallest generally, a lot of times I hear that people want when they're buying things because that's the economy of scale for management. So if you can't do a
A little high, I mean, yeah, but yeah, point well taken, I mean, yeah, you have to have a certain critical mass or you just can't make anything work. Even then, you're kind of betting on the market to continue to appreciate as far as rent rates and then, not that our current one is like a pioneering use like it was 30 years ago. We built that across from the Pepsi plant.
right,
But for this reuse and the density that we're putting in there, it kind of is, especially for the price point we're working with, but that's what we need to do. Otherwise, the alternative is to just do nothing. So it's a tough balance for sure. And the smaller you get, the harder it is to do something of unique quality and
That's, that's why those 3-story and 4-story buildings are difficult.
Yeah, like the one I'm
Right.
doing is 48 units. And when it comes time to sell it, we'll roll it into multiple buildings. Like we're not
As
gonna.
a, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
yeah. And
Yep.
so you don't like develop a
Right.
50-unit building just to own one 50-unit
Mm.
building.
So that's
But
what,
to your point, Galloway Companies is definitely one of the
oh,
big
Galway,
players in
Galway, but not
Madison.
DSI, Galway,
And
Yeah.
Increasingly owns a lot of Monona.
And
So
they both
I have
call
no
Monona
doubt
home,
that
by the
Steve will,
way. They both call Monona home, by the way.
you bet, you bet. And you bet. Your architects, John Chapman is on the committee here, and they're the ones that have been driving the whole redevelopment of Hilldale. The latest redevelopment.
Oh. the second.
And they've done a lot down.
We saw that.
So I think, I think we have some.
I assume Krupp owns the food fight building?
Hmm?
The food fight office?
Isn't that because Krupp is an investor? In
Yeah, that's what I mean, he's one of the owners.
One of the owners.
He should start doing something.
Just one of the things I've noted, it was odd over the course of kind of that I've been here, one of the things I've seen is that developers come to the plan commission in Monona multiple times, is that right?
Yes.
And I don't know if that, just so you guys know by comparison, in Madison, they come once,
Well,
hardly ever twice.
no, that's not true.
In the 5 years that I was served on it,
I've never been to planning commission. I take that back. I think I got to once.
you have a big development, so that's probably it, but.
It's getting
But
better
it's
though. I should say that.
it's never more than twice, so.
Recently, it's certainly gone that way. I mean,
It's gotten a lot better.
yes,
The more typical for us, just, I mean, there's definitely been, scenarios where people have come through a lot, because they're complicated for other reasons, but the typical, and certainly what Doug shoots for is one pre-hearing, especially if it's like something that needs to be rezoned or it is a CDD, because we don't want developers to have to spend a lot of money on plans if
If it isn't.
if it's a kind of a wide open piece of canvas and we really don't know how the, plan commission is gonna react. So one pre-hearing and then, once for the general development plan and once for the. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
I would agree. I think that to me, that's one of the challenges that comes with the open-ended zoning.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
it's sort of setting up those guardrails, whereas I
Yeah,
think
no,
Madison
that's
has
true.
more specificity. So
Yep.
we would
Which would be
that.
nice.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
It's sort of that
hopefully we
trade-off.
will too,
I think that's
as a result
exactly
of this project.
and also, we went back a ton of times and it actually was a lot better. And once we got on the same page, it was a lot better. So I wasn't totally planning commission. Without CPD was hard. The plan commission, but so. But everything worked out fine. I just mean, but I agree, but it's part of it is because we needed a rezone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like, and on a rezoning, it's like, well, we're not gonna give you a rezoning if we can't get something more that we want, which makes sense
Right.
because, it's a little bit different if you come in and you're entitled on it. I mean.
I do appreciate the conversation and I know we're 20 minutes past time, so I do want to be conscious of all your time here. Generally speaking, again, if you have other thoughts, based off today's discussion, please reach out. Doug can get you my contact information if you want to contact.
I want to just, so my question was clear, so when you come back, like, when we decide like to say this is what we're planning for. Like what I don't understand is like, does the plan really push the develop? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't like like you could go to like Houston with no zoning, for example, and you're like, does it look that much different? And the city of Madison is basically going the other way. They're taking, like they're removing all the barriers so that it can just organically happen to some degree.
Organically happen to their prescribed direction.
Correct.
Is increased development intensity and optimizing tax.
Yeah,
rates.
and that's what I'm trying, I don't
You
understand.
got a lot more flexibility if you meet those.
Yeah, and so that, well, that's where I almost feel like is like, what are we supposed to say? Like Broadway should just be high density and then say, no, it's not, or is it? We want mixed use or we want commercial, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the part I don't understand.
No, I think the plan would be fairly prescriptive.
Yeah, well, I think that's what we're planning to discuss with you as the next meeting is like, we started spitballing some ideas for what some alternatives look like. You know, what does the future of that corridor look like? Is it 12-story buildings like you guys talked about? Is it
20?
20 and some other variation thereof, something else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what the outcome of this plan is a recommendation towards, you know, we'd like to see higher and best use defined by this plan. This is what we mean by higher and better use than what it is today.
Yeah, well, and that's where I struggle with when you say prescriptive. How, like, if we guess wrong, then every rezoning has to be consistent with the plan. Unless you're gonna redo the plan, so if you're saying, you know, something is, this is what we want. Nobody's gonna, people, I know all my clients, they look at the plans, and if your plan says this is what you want, they're like, oh, I'm not even gonna look. You know, that's where I worry about the prescriptive coming up barrier.
I think we're fairly historically able to.
Yeah, well, I know that's what I meant.
Between, you know, what market realities are and development intent and restrictions together to a place that we think it's feasible. So then, yes, there might be some type of a gap to get there that maybe other elements of the city need to play a role to actually make it happen, but you have to kind of decide that together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you may have a situation where you want something, but you're not gonna get it. It's what you're considering.
Well, yeah, I just don't know how it like spurs, like, I don't have any planning background, so I just don't know how, like you say, we decide something and does that per when it's prescriptive.
Right.
So if we say 20 stories and you guys think 20 stories is completely outrageous.
Oh, well,
All right, just.
yes.
check
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, because one of the things, it's Monday night, which means I have finance personnel and the city council meeting, and so does Patrick, so. I gotta get the Ryan King about 6 o'clock. So I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate the